Hey there, story lovers! Welcome to the channel where stories come alive, one tale at a time. If you enjoy stories that inspire, surprise, or make you see the world a little differently, you're in the right place. Before we dive in, can I ask you a quick favor? If you like what you hear, please give this video a thumbs up, and don't forget to subscribe to the channel. It helps more than you know, and it means we get to keep sharing these amazing stories with you. Alright, ready? Let's get into today's story.
The story of Steve Jobs. Follow your heart. Let me tell you the story of a man who changed the world. His name was Steve Jobs. You may know him as the man who created the iPhone and started Apple. But his life wasn't always easy. In fact, it was full of ups and downs. This is not just a story of success. It's a story about trusting yourself, never giving up, and doing what you love. Steve once gave a speech to students graduating from a famous university. He didn't try to teach them big lessons. Instead, he told them 3 stories from his own life. Today, I want to tell you those stories as a story about him. Part 1. Connecting the Dots. Steve Jobs was born in California in 1955. His mother was a young college student who wasn't ready to raise a child, so she gave him up for adoption. She wanted him to grow up with educated parents, and she had already chosen a couple who were both well educated. But something unexpected happened. When Steve was born, that couple decided they wanted a girl, not a boy. So they refused to adopt him. At the last minute, Steve was adopted by another couple, Paul and Clara Jobs. They weren't college graduates, but they promised to give Steve a good life. His biological mother was unsure at first, but she finally agreed when they promised that Steve would go to college one day. And years later, he did go to college. He went to Reed College, a very expensive school. His parents used all their savings to pay for it. But after just 6 months, Steve dropped out. He didn't know what he wanted to do with his life, and he didn't want to waste his parents' money. It was a scary decision. He had no plan, but he trusted that things would work out. After dropping out, Steve didn't leave college completely. He stayed as a drop-in student. He didn't take normal classes, but he joined the ones that interested him. One of those was a calligraphy class. Calligraphy is the art of beautiful writing. Steve loved it. He learned about different letter styles, spacing, and design. He didn't know it at the time, but this class would be important later in his life. Years later, when he was building the first Macintosh computer, that class helped him add beautiful fonts to the computer. It was the first time a personal computer had nice-looking text. And because other companies copied Apple, all computers today have beautiful fonts. If Steve hadn't dropped out, he would have never taken that class. He wouldn't have learned those things. He said, "You can't connect the dots looking forward. You can only connect them looking backward." What he meant was, sometimes you don't understand why something happens, but later you see how everything connects. So you must trust yourself and your path. Trust that the dots will connect in your future. Part 2. Love and Loss. Steve loved technology from a young age. When he was just 20 years old, he and his friend Steve Wozniak started a company in Steve's parents' garage. They called it Apple. They worked hard, and in just 10 years, Apple became a huge company worth $2 billion with over 4,000 employees. When Steve was 30, They had just released the Macintosh, their best product at the time. But then something terrible happened. Steve was fired from Apple, the company he started. How does that happen? Well, as Apple grew, Steve hired someone to help run the company. At first, things were good, but over time, their ideas for the company were different. They disagreed. And finally, the board of directors chose the other person. Steve was out. He was heartbroken. He felt lost and embarrassed. He had built something great, and now it was gone. For months, Steve didn't know what to do. He thought about leaving Silicon Valley. But deep down, he still loved what he did. Even though he was rejected, his passion for creating was still there. So he decided to start again. In the next 5 years, Steve created 2 new companies, Next and Pixar. Pixar became the most successful animation studio in the world. They made the first fully computer-animated movie, Toy Story. Steve also met a wonderful woman named Lorene. They fell in love and got married. Later, Apple bought Next, and Steve returned to the company he had started. The technology from Next became the base of the modern Apple systems. Looking back, Steve said being fired from Apple was the best thing that ever happened to him. It gave him a new beginning. It made him more creative. It reminded him to always follow his heart. He said, "You've got to find what you love. Don't settle." And that's true for your job and for your relationships. If you haven't found what you love yet, keep looking. Don't give up. When you find it, you'll know, and it will get better with time. Part 3. Death. When Steve was 17, he read a quote that said, "If you live each day as if it were your last, someday you'll most certainly be right." Those words stayed with him. Every morning, he looked in the mirror and asked himself, "If today were the last day of my life, would I want to do what I'm about to do today?" If the answer was no too many days in a row, he knew he needed to change something. Many years later, Steve faced a real health problem. He went to the doctor and found out he had pancreatic cancer, a serious disease. The doctors told him it was probably not curable, and he had only a few months to live. They told him to get his affairs in order, which means say goodbye and prepare for death. He lived with that thought for a whole day. Then he had a test called a biopsy. They looked at the cancer more closely, and they found something surprising. His cancer was a rare kind that could be treated with surgery. Steve had the surgery, and he survived. This experience changed him. He said, "Remembering that you are going to die is the best way I know to avoid the trap of thinking you have something to lose." Death is the one thing we all share. It removes fear. It helps you see what truly matters. He reminded everyone, "Your time is limited. Don't waste it living someone else's life. Don't be trapped by other people's opinions. Don't let noise drown out your own voice. Have the courage to follow your heart and your intuition. They already know what you truly want to become." The final words: stay hungry, stay foolish. At the end of his speech, Steve told a story about a book called The Whole Earth Catalog. It was like Google, but in book form, full of ideas, tools, and inspiration. On the back of its final issue, there was a photo of a road, and these words, "Stay hungry, stay foolish." Steve loved those words, and he finished his speech by saying, "Stay hungry, stay foolish." It was his wish, for himself and for everyone. And so, what can we learn from Steve Jobs' story? Trust yourself, even when the path is unclear. Do what you love, even when it's hard. Keep going, even when you fail. And most of all, stay curious, stay brave, stay true to yourself. That's how Steve Jobs lived, and that's what made him one of the greatest minds of our time.
And that's the story for today. I hope it left you with something to think about. If you enjoyed it, why not stick around for more? I've got plenty of stories coming your way, and I'd love to share them with you. So if you haven't already, go ahead and hit that like button, and don't forget to subscribe. It really helps this channel grow and lets me keep bringing these stories to you. Thanks for listening, and until next time, stay curious, stay kind, and keep listening to good stories.